Welcome, everyone. Apologies for the slight delay. Hereby an official welcome to our second session of our World Forum Capacity Strengthening Training. We're so excited that you're here with us today. Some of you might have been with us last week as well. And we have another 3 exciting sessions ahead of us. But before that, today, I think is maybe even one of the most exciting of all. I'm honored to be joined by amazing youth from around the world, including yourself as participants, but also here in our panelists. And I would not like to take too much of the floor because I would like to hand over the word to Husni, our moderator of today. He is a social foreign and program design strategist who works at the intersection of youth, system leadership and sustainable development. And he's the director of program strategy of Impact Voices, which is a social innovation intermediary based out of Sri Lanka. So Husni, the floor is yours and of course our youth. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Cressida. Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to session 2, engaging and empowering youth as part of a series of knowledge exchange sessions organized by the World Federation Against Drugs. As Cressida mentioned, my name is Husni, and I'm joining you from Sri Lanka. It's truly a pleasure to be moderating today's session, and I'm especially excited to be part of this conversation alongside all of you as we come together from different parts of the world to learn, reflect, and exchange perspectives. And today's session focuses on why youth participation in prevention and recovery is not simply valuable, but essential, because we always talk about why it is valuable and what are the advantages. But again, here we talk about the urgency, importance, and how we can act now with youth for youth. So through today's discussion, we will explore what meaningful and inclusive youth engagement looks like in practice. We will hear directly from youth leaders leading initiatives within their own communities, as well as reflect on both the opportunities and barriers that shape youth participation today in this world. And what I am personally looking forward to most is hearing the lived experiences, honest reflections, and inspiring work emerging across different contexts. Because we have a very diverse and interesting panel of youth leaders, as we have a fantastic keynote speaker joining in today. So because these conversations really remind us how much we can learn from each one another, as well as how we can create such a safe space for genuine dialogue and exchanges. So thank you once again for being here today, despite all your work and other commitments, and for being part of this important conversation today. So we have a minor change in terms of our overall plan.
Sorry. Shalini is here.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Yeah. So welcome, Shalini. Basically, so we are going ahead as we planned. So today's segment will have 2 key segments. Number 1, we will start off with a keynote speech with the focus on role of organizations to facilitate youth engagement opportunities. And then we will move to a panel discussion with this wonderful youth panelist. And then we will also make space for you all to ask any questions from our panelists so that we can have this collective conversation together. So with that, I would like to welcome Shalini, as well as formally introduce all of you to Shalini. Shalini Jacob is a communications professional with over 2 decades of experience in content development, strategic communication, and social impact storytelling. As the head of communications at Fourth Way Foundation, Shalini leads impactful communications campaigns, community interventions, and stakeholder engagement efforts. She is one of the key people who developed the student empowerment program module, Project Venda. Project Venda uses to train school students across Kerala in substance abuse awareness. A firm believer in power of storytelling for social change, Shalini is passionate about youth empowerment, community resilience, and creative advocacy as well. And she continues to drive initiatives that encourage young people to make informed choices fostering a future free from substance abuse and social vulnerability. And I have had the privilege of meeting Shalini number of times personally, and I'm so happy to have you here. I'm sure, like, with all your wisdom, great things that you have done for decades, as most importantly with your passion, next 10 minutes will be something really important for all of us, that we can not only get inspired but also tap into your great wisdom as well. So Shalini, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hisni, for the kind words. And it's great to see you reconnect again here, though it's just virtually, but it's always good to see a familiar face. And I know there are other people here that I may know, but I don't see many faces. But Cressida, again, it's so great to connect on this virtual platform. It's a pity that we couldn't catch up for the CND due to very unfortunate circumstances that's happening around the world. But it's so great. I mean, it's always nice to be here. And Drusilla, I see you, Drusilla. Hello. And there are some faces, I'm sure, because I'm so unfamiliar to this Teams platform. I'm a little nervous about pressing the wrong button and the whole screen might go blank. So I'm just going to brace myself and do only the things I know how to do. So once again, thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be here. Thank WFAD for this opportunity. Opportunity to basically share our work on youth engagement and the best practices in prevention. And I would also take this moment to acknowledge Fourth Way Foundations and the work of Diana Joseph, our founder and director, who was supposed to make this keynote address. I'm actually a replacement for her. And it's her commitment over the years that has enabled us to build an approach in which youth are not just participants, but prepared, trusted, and positioned to lead. So, because in Fourth Way Foundation, the whole organization drive is driven on youth energy. So before I start, again, the platform is so unfamiliar. I request Sneha, my colleagues, help to present the slides. Sneha, I hope you can present my slides. Okay, great. She's already presenting it. Great. So we begin with the thought, why youth? So when we speak about young people in social development, they are often seen as uh, beneficiaries, sometimes volunteers, and occasionally leaders. At Fourth Way Foundation, we seek to see them differently because we see them as architects of prevention or architects of any intervention that we do on the field. Because prevention is not just about awareness. We are all in this space. We know that it's not just an awareness education. Prevention is a little more than that. Prevention is a little more than that. It's about influence. It's about timing. It's about trust the community has, the trust the third person, the second person has for you, and everything else. And youth are uniquely positioned at that intersection, and they are most always closest to risk environments. They shape what is acceptable and they influence behavior in real time. We are not talking hypothetically, but they are on the ground experiencing the challenges and also influencing in real time. So the question is not whether youth can contribute. The question is whether prevention can succeed without them. So at Fourth Way Foundation, youth engagement is always intentional because we don't see any other way of uh, doing prevention without their involvement. So the average age of a Fourth Way Foundation team member is around 28. That means we have people in their early 20s to late 20s. For most of the employees in Fourth Way Foundation this is their first employment. So we see this as an age where energy meets maturity, making it ideal for leading impactful prevention work. So before young people step into communities or start their work, they go through a structured training grounded in prevention science they learn some they sharpen their communication skills, and they also learn community engagement, the different dynamics that's involved in community engagement. So what they carry forward is not just energy, but clarity, responsibility, and purpose. See, they become stewards to the community they are going to intervene with. Our approach is built on a strong evidence-informed understanding. For the past 20 years, actually, Fourthway Foundation is now 2026. We are celebrating our 20th year of existence. So this is our 20 years of experience on the ground. We have an evidence-informed understanding that youth, when equipped and trusted, can influence not just their peers, but the families, the schools, and even local self-governance systems, and even the government themselves. So next slide, Sneha. So now I just want to explore the role of any organization when you enabling youth leaders. So what we need to understand is youth. Understanding the power of youth, we also need to understand that youth ideally do not operate in isolation. For their potential to translate into impact, organizations must understand the youth dynamics and must shift their role. At Fourthway Foundation, this means, the next slide, please, creating meaningful engagement platforms, equipping youth with tools and frameworks, opening access to systems and stakeholders, and most importantly, the organization steps back so that the youth can lead. Because without structure, energy dissipates, and without ownership, engagement becomes superficial, and we need to ensure both, that the energy is sustained and the engagement is real. The next slide. Most youth programs stop at peer-to-peer awareness. We agree that that is a very effective format in the youth engagement, a peer-to-peer awareness, but we can go beyond and we can go further than that. Youth in our programs youth themselves become the community connectors. They become dialogue facilitators and bridges between people and systems. If actually we will, I'm unfortunate to have one of our Fourthway Foundation representative here, Sovai, the representative here. Sovai is a platform, youth platform of the Fourthway Foundation, to elaborate what I am now saying as a theory. He will, through his, Asil is here, I suppose. Asil, are you here? Asil will probably elaborate on the theory I'm just expounding now to make it more relatable. So what youth become, like I said before, youth bridge between people and the systems, the government systems. So they act as this facilitator that connect the people, the community, the grassroots into accessing the government systems. Why they are managed to do that is they simply bring something powerful like the lived reality, because they are living their reality and the challenges they face in real time. So they bring in that into their interventions, and that shifts the conversation from being abstract to real. So when they speak to their community, they're not talking about hearsay. They're talking about their real experiences. And from distant reality, it becomes something urgent that needs to be addressed, because they're urging the community, see, I am facing this, or my friend is facing this. So this is urgent, this is real. And from passive listening, it turns into collaboration. So the youth is urging the community, I am seeking help. I am seeking help for my friend who is now undergoing a challenge, and we need to collaborate to bring about a solution. So what, because this is their, when they're talking about challenges, it is their lived reality. So the conversation shifts from abstract to real, from distant to urgent, and from passive listening to collaboration. In India, in both Kerala and Karnataka, where both our projects are very active, our young team members have touched countless lives. In a remote village in Karnataka, for instance, a young teacher took the first step towards inclusive education, and soon after, over 50 children with disabilities were enrolled in school systems. Today, thanks to these efforts, more than 60,000 children with disabilities are attending mainstream government schools in Karnataka. That's the kind of ripple effect we're talking about. When young change makers team up with various community stakeholders, amazing things happen. Over in Kerala, with Project Venda, that is Fourth Way Foundation's initiative and prevention focused interventions, um, within the last decade, or around 100 young people have committed themselves full time. They are full time employees to the Fourth Way Foundation's Project Venda, a program dedicated again to preventing substance abuse. Together, they have empowered over 1 million children to say no to drugs. This is no exaggeration. These are real numbers, and million children and counting uh, to say no to drugs, alcohol, and other harmful substances. What's truly remarkable is the diversity of these youth. We are not just talking about social development professionals, or we are just talking about a diverse set of youth with a passion to make a difference. They could be football players, they could be social workers, they are media, some of them are media professionals, some of them are teachers, some of them are techies, engineers, enthusiasts, all united by one goal: to ensure the well-being of children in their communities. Next slide, Sneha. Now, another aspect that the youth bring about very easily is one of their strongest learnings is this. Our strongest learnings that we have seen in the 20 years of intervention work in the community is people open up when they are not, people open up not when they're instructed, but when they feel understood. So the youth-led engagement works like that because it happens in a familiar space. It's very informal. They use natural language. They are themselves. Hierarchy is removed. And then this builds trust among the community. And trust is always the foundation for behavioral change. And the next slide, Sneha. And prevention, therefore, becomes a community culture. Prevention, again, is not a one-time effort. Becomes a shared community value. So youth make this possible by connecting with schools and families, because in Project Venda, on an average, every day, a team from we have our presence in 8 districts in Kerala, and each day there is a team intervening with the schools, government school systems, and visiting schools and connecting with schools, frontlining with the children, with the school administration, sometimes with the parents, with the teachers, and with the community that is around the school. And they bridge communities and institutions. Sometimes our catalyst, the team in Fourth Way Foundation is the one that bridges the community with the institution, and encourages the self-governing, the Panchayat Raj, that is the self-governance systems that we follow in India. We connect them to the institution. Therefore, there is a community ownership and sustaining continuous engagement through this bridging of community institutions. Over time, this creates a protective environment where healthy choices are reinforced from all sides. Next slide, Sneha. And another aspect is inclusion. Meaningful youth engagement must be inclusive by design. So at Fourth Way Foundation, gender balance is not optional. It is built into participation. We ensure equal representation, visible leadership for young women, structures that require inclusion, and this does more than strengthen programs. It reshapes the community perception of leadership itself. They start looking up to these young women, and there is um, aspirations for other young women to follow suit and explore their own leadership and influence the community. Another important, next slide, please. Another important aspect in that we have found in Fourth Way Foundation is through actual, um, when the youth drives and takes ownership of interventions and programs, we are able to attract and retain young talents into sustaining these programs. An important outcome of this approach is sustainability, and young people are not just engaging, they are choosing to stay because they experience ownership, real impact, and they witness transformational stories every day, and they facilitate families, they facilitate communities and to connect to the systems that sometimes are not accessible. So when these facilitations happen, what happens is there is a transformation in the lives of the people they work with. So when a young people see that they are the reason, their work is the reason for this transformation, uh, they choose to stay because there is nothing more satisfying than the experiencing that feeling that you're actually responsible for betterment of the beneficiaries you're working with. Many now see this substance use prevention or prevention focused intervention not as a volunteering program or something that, okay, they can do while they have free time or something they do during the gap year, which is also great. But most of them or some of them actually choose to be in this and choose this as a meaningful career path. Next slide, please. Another strategy or another tool we use very famously in Fourth Way Foundation is sports. And sports plays a powerful role in our engagement, not just as a recreation, but it is a strategy. It cuts across social and cultural barriers. It attracts diverse groups. It builds discipline, teamwork, and aspiration for the beneficiaries and also for us facilitators and enablers, because to conduct a sports program, to conduct anything that involves sports, sometimes involves the facilitators themselves to practice their talk or walk their talk. So it builds a certain amount of discipline, teamwork, and builds their own aspiration in terms of uh, exploring sports, sometimes as a career for the beneficiaries, and sometimes uh, just to choose a very healthy lifestyle, just to like the idea of having a very healthy lifestyle, disciplined lifestyle. And that brings about so much focus and definitely results in a better outcome in whatever field they are in. It also becomes an entry point in terms of when we are talking about just prevention work, it also becomes an entry point to start conversations, because there is no child that doesn't like to play. There's no child who don't want to be let loose in the fields and run and kick a ball. So it always becomes an entry point to conversations. Next slide, please. if prevention is about shaping choices before risk becomes behavior, then youth are not just part of the solution, they are most effective drivers of it. And when organizations move from directing youth to enabling them, creating an opportunity for them, what emerges is not just participation, but ownership, influence, and lasting change across communities and systems. So this is what we have realized uh, through our programs at the grassroots, that youth are the essence of our work. And without the young people, we have found that prevention is not possible. Uh, I would go to an extent to say, without the role the young people play in prevention, we cannot look at prevention without the youth playing their role. So with that, I conclude my address. Thank you for listening, and thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Shalini, for that. Such a powerful way to end that conversation. I really loved it personally. I was also reflecting a lot that I've been seeing in person as well as hearing. But something I was making a note of certain things that you have said, which I felt really interesting. Everything was so important, but something really struck me for our audience. I was looking at one thing that you highlighted, creating meaningful engagement platforms, and how Fourth Foundation has been doing that, and why it is important that organizations actually focus on that. That was very interesting, as well as most importantly, not just about the opportunity, but also equipping youth with tools and frameworks. So you also build their capacity and how they sort of empower them in a more strategic way, as well as I think one of the most powerful thing that I found here was opening access to systems and stakeholders. I think young people really need that. And I'm so glad to see personally like how Fourth Way Foundation is like bringing that whole intergenerational collaboration, solidarity, learning space, and then sort of doing this fantastically. So thank you so much, Shalini. I think probably I'm sure like you'll be staying with us, and we'll also ask our audience too. If you have any questions, feel free to put on the chat. So we'll also take it up one by one along with our panelists. But thank you so much, Shalini, for sharing that presentation and also sharing all the wisdom and the great work from your organization as well as your personal capacity. Thank you so much. With that, we are moving to the next segment with that whole inspiration, learning, and the insight that we get. Now we're going to get into a conversation. It's a conversation among 5 young people that we have here from different interesting, diverse backgrounds. They have done some fantastic work in their personal lives, a very rich lived experience, as well as they're going to tell you and I'll tell all of us how they see certain things and their perspectives. And this is a space for us to hear from those young people on their perspectives on issues related to youth prevention, recovery, and systems leadership around that. So before we get into that interesting, fun, chilled, youthful conversation, I'll have to do a bit of a boring part, which is not boring, which is also very important because we also need to know each one of them in before we get into the conversation. So I'm gonna read out their brief bios, but don't worry, you will get to read about themselves in a follow-up email when you receive more information from the organizers. You will be able to like connect with them, learn more about their work. But in the interest of the time, I'm gonna briefly introduce each one of them, and then we're gonna have that fun time together, that whole 1 hour of collective conversations, reflections, and thought sharing. So I'm trying to put things in the alphabetical order, but if I did any mistakes, please forgive me. I'll start with A. Ali Usman Mukhtar is here with us. Mukhtar is a certified prevention practitioner and a African Union Youth Forum leader who co-drafted the first African Youth Declaration on Drug Use Prevention and represents African youth across major global policy platforms. Through programs like Peer Support and Recovery Program in Nigeria, he has trained hundreds of youth influencers across the country. So thank you very much, Mukhtar, for joining us today. Pleasure to have you. And then we have Esul Pereira, who is the catalyst at Fourth Way Foundation, play a key role in the school and community-focused prevention interventions. Esul has also been instrumental in coordinating the Venda Cup annual football tournament across both north and south zones of Kerala. And also, he was also part of the international training of trainers engaging youth in prevention curriculum in India, where I had a privileged meeting. Right, and then we'll move to the third person, that is Drusilla Blinker. Drusilla holds bachelor's degree in social human studies with a major in psychology. She's the director of SLH Youth Initiative, a youth organization in Suriname dedicated to peer education and youth empowerment. She's the current female SDG Youth Ambassador for Suriname as well, and also she serves as the national focal point for Oviedo Declaration in Suriname. We have Caitlin Nichols. Caitlin is a program coordinator at Drug Free America Foundation, where she leads the Young Professionals Advisory Board. She's currently pursuing her master's degree in public health at George Washington University, where she's further developing her expertise in prevention strategies, community health initiatives, and policy advocacy. Welcome, Caitlin, as well. And then we have Yoni. Yoni Tobi is a medical student based in Belgium with a strong interest in youth engagement and community empowerment. She's currently coordinator of Rotary Action Group for Addiction Prevention, Chapter Youth, and founding president of the Rotaract E-Club of Youth Prevention Influencers. She's driven by creating real community impact through youth-led initiatives. So those are those wonderful introductions to our wonderful panel of youth leaders. And with that, we're going to get into our interesting conversation with each one of them. So it's, again, just for the audience, it's going to be a real-time conversation that we'll be asking certain questions from our youth leaders. They'll be sharing their perspectives. So everything they share based on the experience, expertise, and also real life exposure they have got with their work around these topics. So to kick off this conversation, I would like to maybe start off with Drusilla. Drusilla, would you like to tell us what personal experience inspired you to get involved in this work?
Yes, thank you very much, Husni. Yeah, first of all, I'm so happy to be here to be able to share a little bit with you all what I am doing in Suriname and my experience. And basically in my life, it has been a chain reaction because it's not just one experience that has placed me in a position where I'm at right now, but it has been different things. So imagine being a 3-year-old child and your after school activities consist of you being dropped off at your mom's work, and her job is basically working at a rehabilitation center for men with substance use disorders. And at that age, I was able to connect and engage with these men who are dealing with, recovery and treatment. And at a very young age, I was able to see these people from a different perspective, because usually in our culture back home, there's a different perspective. People are considered being too much, and there's a lot of negative perspectives when it comes to people with substance use disorders. So at a very young age, I was able to have a different view of people dealing with these issues. And after that, at 9 years old, my mom started a foundation, and we were primarily focused on, prevention, and that's also where I got started. So I was able to see this from, both ends of the scale. We were at the treatment and recovery, but also prevention. And it has made me realize how important prevention actually is, that initial engagement with young people. So that's where I stuck. That's it for me. So that was just a chain reaction of, starting off at 3 years old, seeing these men in recovery, and then also just continuing this path of prevention as a young person.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you so much, Joseph, for sharing that very interesting point. That also brings that whole intergenerational engagement from the small days, how that creates an impact in terms of youth engagement in the further down the line. So thank you so much. With that, maybe Asul, would you like to share what personal experience inspired you to get involved in this work?
Am I audible?
Yes, yeah.
Hi everyone. I am Asil Pereira, Catalyst at Forte Foundation, Project Agenda, and I am representing I Engage, the youth engagement platform of Forte Foundation. I'm glad to be part of this discussion along with the other youthful youth representatives. I thank WFAD and Forte Foundation for giving this opportunity. And nice meeting you, Usni, after a long time. Usni was a trainer at 2024 11th Division Youth Asian Youth Forum on Drug Prevention, organized by Forte Foundation in collaboration with Colombo Plan. And I was a youth leader in the youth forum as well. Thank you for the warm introduction, Usni. Then coming to your question, what personal experience I inspired to get involved in this work is that growing up, I closely seen my friends and other young people in the community using substances. Curiosity, peer pressure, or emotional struggles is what influenced them to use the substance. I have come across the situations where the usage pushed the individuals, people whom I know, towards harmful behaviors. So they often lack the right guidance and safe spaces and support systems to make informed choices. So after joining Project Vanda and being part of the prevention interventions, I realized that the prevention is not just about creating awareness, but also about early interventions, building life skills, and creating environments where young people feel supported and empowered. I felt a strong responsibility to contribute to building in such a spaces where children and young people are equipped with the knowledge and confidence to make healthier choices in their lives.
That's great. Thank you so much, Russell, and likewise, great to see you all again. And Yoni, how about you? I mean, you have been working with the Rotary Action Group, but overall, what really inspired you to get involved with this work?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to thank you all for this opportunity to be here and talk about my experience. And I actually do have a bit of a different experience because I didn't get in contact with addiction when I was really young. But then I went to medical school, and then we learned about all the effects of the addiction problems, like with alcohol, with drugs. But there was never anything about prevention. It was always about learning how to fix things and about the long-term sequences. But they never talk about prevention. So it was hard to understand, if it's such a big problem, why won't we do anything about it? And we don't really learn anything about it, and certainly not in the early stage before the problems happen. So that was actually the thing that got me thinking about prevention, and then I got in contact with the Rotary. So that's how I got into this.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Yoni. The audience, why I wanted to start off this conversation with that particular question is also because when we work in the youth engagement, it's important to understand different entry points for youth participation. And also, it's also always nice to understand how differently young people get involved in this work, and different people come from different backgrounds, different reasons. Sometimes being aware of it and also understanding that diversity would also be very helpful when you curate programs for young people. So we thought, why not we start off with a more grounded question where you all started, so that we can build up on that. With that, again, I would also like to thank. There's one question for Shalini here. We'll take it up at the end of this panel discussion with all of us with the Q&A session, and the audience, kindly feel free to share your questions in the chat. We are happy to take up towards the end of this panel discussion. And also all others, this is again who are joining late. As I said before, this is not just another chit chat with youth, but this is everything that you say comes with a lot of lived experience, insights and exposure. So based on how you perceive, how you understand each of those points they share here, you will be able to really learn from them, as well as see how best you can curate your own programs in your community with their lived experience and the insights they share. So I just want to bring that kind reminder for those who joined a little late. And with that, maybe I'll move towards the left side of my screen. I see Kathleen. Maybe I would like to ask you, why is the youth involvement essential in drug prevention, treatment, and recovery? Not just helpful, but necessary. Because sometimes it's been seen as, oh, nice things to have it. But again, is it nice things to have, or is it necessary to have it,
Hi, I just want to say thank you to WFAD for the opportunity to be here today. To answer that question, I would say that like it's necessary because they're like the next generation, like youth is like the next generation of leaders. So they are like the up and coming of like what's going to be happening next. Because like as people get older, people retire and then new people have to take things over. And like if the younger you start, like the easier it is to like implement it like longer term. And they're also surrounded by different things that like older people like might not even see. Like, I mean, I'm only 24 and there's things that I don't know about until I hear about it from like the younger generation. Like new trends start earlier and earlier, and like if you're like more on top of it and they're more involved, like more people know about it earlier on, which helps you like prevent people from getting involved with it in the first place, and like spreading the correct information rather than information that's like not fully true and based on like rumors that other kids are spreading around. It helps like address more of the underlying issues. And like with that being said, the underlying issues like can be addressed better if the people who are experiencing them are the ones talking about it.
Great, thank you. Very interesting perspective. And Mukhtar, what do you think about it? Do you think it's necessary, or is it nice to have it, or it's cool to have it because it looks nice for external people, So
well, it is necessary. It is necessary, actually. And to respond to that, I would like to recount on some of the strategies Shalini mentioned in her presentation, particularly as to why it is necessary to have young people in prevention workforce. Because young people understand each other best, and they don't want to be subjected to elders who will make them answer questions, or who would rather be perceived as those that would judge them. Young people understand the trends. They can freely speak to one another in terms of their insecurities and vulnerabilities, in terms of what works and what really does not work. And Caitlin also mentioned the emerging trends that always changes, in terms of substance use, in terms of, so this is the reason why young people, the participation of young people is very, very necessary if we hope to bring all this together in order to achieve an effective prevention that works. So we need to involve young people because they provide the vital information to make our prevention effort work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mukhtar. As much as we say that is important and necessary, but then we also sometimes see there are a number of things that prevent young people from getting involved or speaking up, right? So sometimes it's also important to hear from young people themselves what prevents young people from getting involved with speaking up, because that might be different from how outsiders see that particular situation. Right. So we would like to maybe hear from some of you. I'll maybe start off with Yoni again. Would you like to share what, based on your personal experience and things that you have seen, what really prevents young people from getting involved or speaking up on these issues?
But what I personally have like experience is that they are afraid of like the peer pressure of being like excluded from a group because they're like labeled as boring or overly cautious. So it's really hard for them to like step up and like be the strange one in the group, like the one that's aware of the problems and wants to address them, because mostly because of like the people around them, they're gonna like they know there's a problem, but they just gonna be silent about it because they're afraid of what they might think if they do say something about it. So I think that's a big problem we see a lot in the youth.
Interesting, yeah. So yeah, that's a very interesting point. I was just thinking for those who are joining in, how much of a rich conversation this would be if you are into program design or if you're into like design and their local initiatives. Like these are the important things that they would never hear in the sort of university or some in the textbook. But again, things that we really need to come for these conversations to hear from young people. Asul, what do you think? How about your part of the world, how it is working, and also what prevents young people from getting involved or speaking up in these issues based on what you have seen in your area or the community?
I think youth often lack accessible platforms to express their thoughts and opinions in matters concerning them. Youth are also not involved in decision-making processes and policy developments. Since we are the future of the world, youngsters like us should have an equal say in decisions and matters that affect us. Like Article 12 of the UNCRC gives us the right to participate. Children have the right to express their views freely in all matters affecting them. The views of the child should be given due weight. We have a right to participate in matters that concern our future. Many are not aware of this, right? So the platforms like these are really helpful. So Forthway Foundation has a youth engagement platform, so I engage that connects young people from all over the country to empower and engage with the multiple social development outlooks through conversations, ideations, and discussions. We foresee this as an open space to explore opportunities for working together on matters that shape our world, led by teens and young adults. So I engage actively advocates for youth representations in matters concerning them. We strive to ask questions about society and social issues and why we should engage with the world around us. Through this platform, we wish to motivate our contemporaries to come together and be involved in matters that will influence others to understand the problems we face around the world, some of which exist even without our knowledge. So we need more opportunities and platforms where our voices are heard and considered.
Thank you, Asol. Yeah, I think there are two key points that popped up there. Number one, on the information and awareness. Do young people know about this? And also, do we know about our rights, our policies that has been given green light for us to engage in these spaces? At the same time, you mentioned about the right platform, I would say. So at the right platform, do we have that to sort of, get there? So when we don't have that, prevent young people from speaking up and engaging. So thank you very much for that insight. I would like to move to Caitlin. Maybe would you like to share based on what you have seen in your community, what prevents young people from getting involved in these conversations and the work?
I would say that I agree with like a lot of what everybody else has been saying, but I would add to that a lot of youth are still like under the impression that like, oh, like it's not going to happen to me. Like they live in the mindset that they're still kind of like indestructible, and like that even though other people experience bad things, like something bad won't happen to them, or like they're never going to go down that path, even though they are just as likely as everybody else to go down that path if something were to happen. And like things happen all the time, like, oh, like I can get in a car with a drunk driver and I was fine this time, so I can do it again. But that's not always true. Like same thing with any sort of other like driving under the influence or using other substances. Like all it takes is like one wrong move for something to go wrong, and that can kind of change the mindset for a lot of people. But until something happens to them, I feel like they don't necessarily have an importance for getting involved. And then I also feel like their overall, like what's going on in their lives, like if they're already busy with other things like schoolwork and everything else, like they're not going to prioritize doing something that like hasn't directly impacted them already.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective, as well as like that's the beauty of this panel, like we hear from different parts of the world, so there are different ways that we are looking at it, and also that will really help us to enlighten our thought process as well. So thank you very much for that input. As much as we discuss about what made us involved, and also the is it necessary, and what prevents young people from engaging. I was thinking it's also good to hear some of the stories and the impactful work that you all have done in your own communities, so that our audience can also get inspired, but also not just get inspired and say, hey, it was a good work, but also for them to learn and see how we can also apply some of those best practices in their own engagements. So this, I was thinking maybe next 10 minutes we can spend together to learn a bit more about some of the work that you all have done in your communities. Maybe I'll start off with Drusilla. Would you like to share something that you have done? Could be something very simple. So for all the panelists, basically, it doesn't have to be something huge. It could be something simple. It could be something that is close to your heart. It could be something that you think that world should know, not necessarily, because you have to say, but again, people should know and they deserve to know. So if you have any stories, it's time for you to like share those. And also don't forget to mention the impact that created in your community, because that'll be something that everyone would be looking out in this conversation. Like, okay, you did this, so what? What was the impact? So would love to hear that from you all. So starting off with Drusilla, would you like to share some of your stories with us? Yeah.
Yeah, so as I already stated, I started on very early, and at the age of 13, I did a peer educators training, and that meant that I was able to train my peers. I was going to different schools and all of that. But the first time that I was able to really see things from a different perspective, to really get engaged, was at the First Caribbean Youth Forum, and it was in 2019. And we were one of the winning countries. And with that seed grant, we were able to do a life skills sessions in combination with prevention. And it was sewing lessons that we did with young people in our community. And it was them also learning how to manage their stress, time management, anger management, all of these skills that they need to be able to contribute or, be part of society in a healthy manner. And that's actually something that has continued. So it's not something that was one-off. We've had different grants given to us to be able to get the material to do this, like with not only the government, but also with like multinationals here in our country. But something that I specifically focus on because of my background is mental health. So if we take a look at prevention in combination with mental health, there's a very, very, very important, connection. And that is something that I always include in different sessions. So we have share and paint sessions where young people are able to, put their emotions and everything that they're dealing with on a canvas, and they're able to share with their peers. And that actually, gives you a different perspective on how to look at what young people are dealing with. And we had different types of sessions when it comes to, including mental health in prevention. And we also had the Engaging Youth in Prevention session here in Suriname. And that actually, a lot of people have been asking me, do they really participate? And there's a lot of assumptions going around, because we've always heard for many years that young people do not really engage in certain things. They're not interested. And this has had such an impact that a lot of these young people from the first group are now part of the youth council, are now, doing amazing work as youth leaders. And there are other young people that have been inspired by this training that are constantly asking when it's going to be available again. And when you mention this to like the leaders of the government, they sometimes they even laugh, and they ask like, are they really interested? Do you think they're going to participate? But they keep asking for it. So that means that there's a seed that has been planted, and it's growing, and we need to be able to actually continue making this impact. So there's a lot of different ways that we do it. We like to make it creative and interactive, because we know that young people think very differently, have access to different types of, technology and information. So your approach has to be, something that interests them. So I think that's a little bit, I don't want to take up like the time for everyone else to, speak, but we have different approaches that we take, but that's what we focus on: life skills, mental health, and, all over creating youth leaders that can also influence their communities and, their environment.
That's great. Thank you so much, Drusilla. And on top of, I mean, she said everything perfectly. On top of it, something that came to my mind is something interesting about Drusilla's work is the consistency with their program. I remember we were there in 2019 with the Caribbean Forum, and then they were sharing 7 years. I still see those updates and similar initiatives that were taken up. So I think something that stood out for me, that whole consistency over the last 7 years, and also learning from that and taking to the next level. So thank you so much, Drusilla, for sharing that with us. Anything would you like to share with us in terms of something great that you have seen in your community, something that you have done in your community through your organization or in your capacity? And also what was the impact that you have seen based on that particular project? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to add that one initiative I've been closely involved in Forte Foundation project and is the Alternative Pursuits program, which focuses on channelizing the energy of young adults into healthy, positive activities. And at Vanda, we do this by engaging children in sports, arts, and music and theater. Peer-to-peer engagement model where young people connect with influence each other in meaningful ways. A key component of alternative pursuits program is the Venda Cup. Like I said, it's an annual football tournament of Project Venda that provides football-loving teenagers, especially from the advantaged and high-risk communities, the opportunity to experience professional sporting while serving a platform to promote a drug-free lifestyle. Through football, these two students build resilience, discipline, teamwork, and confidence, encouraging them to make healthier life choices and stay away from substance abuse. So one of the most impactful aspects of the program is its strong emphasis on gender inclusion. Schools can only participate if they register both boys and girls teams. So this has led to the creation of new girls teams in several schools, giving young women access to opportunities in sports, leadership, and personal development that they might not have had otherwise. So in terms of impact, the program has helped engage high youth in constructive activities, strengthened awareness about substance abuse, and promoted inclusivity in school sports. It has created a supportive environment where young people feel empowered to make positive decisions, influence their peers, and contribute to safer, healthier communities. So that's the impact I had.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Caitlin, how about you? If you can pick one story that you would like to share with us and the impact it created, what would that be?
I would say that like since I've taken over running like the Young Professionals Advisory Board, which is not really like a community work type of thing, it's more of like a sounding board. And like with that, we've had the opportunity to like as like the whole group to create resources with like more relatable messaging on social media just to meet where everybody like our target population is more of like the older range of youth, like the more like the 18 to like 26 range. And like with that being said, obviously a lot of that range is like on all forms of social media. So like really making sure that we're meeting them where they are and like staying up to the trends like with those social media platforms. So we use our Instagram and we also moved to LinkedIn, which seems to be helping a lot too. It helps a lot with our recruitment as well as like getting more people involved as it's like a great space for that age range, especially with trying to get into the work field. Like a lot of people are hanging out on there.
That's amazing. That's great. I'm sure, is there any website that people can learn about that? Maybe like at the end or sometime like you can share with them. Maybe so it will also be a very nice, interesting sort of example, because I see like each of these examples being like different tier of engagement. So that'll be very interesting for our audience to learn more about those engagements that each one of you mentioned. I'll go to Yoni next. Yoni, anything that you would like to share with us that might be helpful for us to get inspired and learn from your work?
So actually the thing that has like most impact to me is like the training I've done. Like when you start with the YPI progress, you do a training, and most people go in by it like, oh, training, everyone is gonna sit there, it's gonna be boring. Then you come there and you're actually like encouraged to like understand addiction from different perspectives, because you think about it in a way that other people don't think about. So some people will think about mental health. Some people will think about like going out. Some people are more into like drug addiction, and some people are more about like vapes or something. So it's really interesting to see how other people think about it, and like that they explain it to you, and you have like better insights of addiction in like the whole, because it's not you it's not like a straight line. You can have like mental health problems that lead to addiction, or you can have like the other way around. You can have an addiction and then leads to mental health problems. So it's so hard to understand it, and there's so many ways that an addiction is created. So it's really had an impact on me and how I think about like the whole addiction thing, to like hear it from different perspective and different people and all the different possibilities. And it's such an important thing to know before you start like creating prevention, because you can't do prevention on something that you don't fully understand. So I think that's also a really important note, that you first have to understand it before you can do anything to prevent it. And another thing I've learned is like that it's different everywhere in the world. Because, for example, I did some volunteer work in South Africa, and there it's like a whole different thing than how we know it, because how they like think about alcohol and drugs, it's like normal to them, but for us it's actually like misabuse of the substances. So I think it's also important to know that like what I would do in Belgium does not work for like other people in other continents and even other countries. So it's important to like know what's going on in your community and to base it on your community needs, the prevention actions. So I think that two of the most important like notes I would make if you want to like create something that actually has like an effect in your community.
That's great. Thank you so much, Yoni, for sharing that with us. And with that, I would like to move to Mukhtar. But again, I would like to add another layer to that whole question in terms of what you have done. Because I've been seeing a very nice pattern of like different kind of experience shared based on how they have seen, how they have exposed. Would you like to share with us in terms of, on top of the local work that you've been doing, how maybe a story or something that you have done in the regional level, and also how that has created some impact. So that'll be something inspiring and also learning space for all of us to sort of see how we can take our work from local to regional and beyond, you know. You're on mute if you're speaking.
Husni, can you hear me? Sorry,
Yes,
I'm having.
you're loud and clear.
Can you see me also?
Yes, we can.
All right, because I'm having some technical challenge. Well, let me answer your question in two perspectives. Now, in terms of the local one, you were there. Drusilla also is present during the Abu Dhabi conference, during the Youth Forum in Abu Dhabi. Primarily, one of the impactful work that I've done over the years started from the Abu Dhabi conference, where I presented a proposal for an entirely different project, which is the Peer Support and Recovery Program. And I implemented that project after winning the grant from Colombo Plan. And that project specifically is peer-to-peer model of prevention and referral pathways for students across universities who, who have substance use problem. And since the beginning of that program till date, we were able to make a considerable impact. Reason because the project itself has deliverables. So we need to deliver on what we said we're going to deliver, but we have exceeded that. We trained over 300 prevention influencers across the universities in Nigeria, which is very, very impactful. We were able to also link almost 26 students to be certified on the universal prevention curriculum, because we believe, capacity building and training open room for young people to pursue career in the substance use workforce, and that's also very, very important. Notably, we were able to see a decline in the number of substance use disorder and mental health crises within campuses that are linked to the university counseling center. So this is one of the projects I would like to highlight at the community level that I was able to participate, and I'm very proud of, and I've seen quite a lot of impact. At the continental level, we have similarities across for young people across different countries in Africa, say for example. But of course, as Yoni highlighted, there are also community differences within the region. But very notably, in 2023, the African Union Commission was able to convene the first African Union Youth Forum on Drug Use Prevention in Lusaka, Zambia. And during that forum, we had 66 young people from different parts of the continent who came together, sat down after the training, engaging youth in prevention. They sat down and wrote a declaration for the African Union member states to adopt. And since that, as a youth leader and youth representative of the Youth Forum, we were able to pursue the recommendations of this declaration that African Union and the member states be able to provide room and opportunities for young people to institutionalize prevention workforce for young people across member states. Of course, that is not yet achievable, but we're beginning to see some progress. Last year, the African Union convened a training, universal training of trainers for university prevention, particularly for young people, which is actually a progress on the recommendation that we made in 2023. So these are some of the regional progress that we're seeing. Of course, there are challenges, as you know, with every intervention or with every program, but we are beginning to see a progress at the regional level with this work that we initiated. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mukhtar. And you just made me realize, it's been 4 years since the Abu Dhabi conference that happened in May. I think Drusilla was there and some of you were there. So it was a great time. And also for me, I think what is really interesting to see that the impact that each one of you have done and some of the people in the audience have done over the years, and the consistency is tremendous and so inspiring. And it's so great to see that, I think that also leads to another important term that everyone uses. Everyone talks about the tokenism, youth engagement, and that's where I think we also start talking about, like, what does meaningful youth engagement or involvement mean, right? This is another topic, very interesting one that we can have a conversation for another 2 hours because it actually requires such an important prominent. Maybe some of you can take it up and organize a separate session in your communities across sectors on what does meaningful youth engagement mean. But we don't have much of time to discuss in detail, but still I wanted to make a point on that particular term, and also would like to hear some of you in terms of, like, what do you understand by this term? Again, we have all those definitions, right? That we can just simply use AI and read about it. But here what we need is, based on your perception or understanding, what does meaningful youth involvement look like? And most importantly, what needs to change to make that happen, right? Maybe I'll start with Drusilla. Would you like to share your thoughts on that? Based on how you see and perceive, what does meaningful youth involvement look like?
Yeah, so I think there's many different ways you would able to explain what meaningful youth engagement looks like, getting involved, being able to take part in meetings, just being there and being a voice, being heard, and your opinions and your ideas being taken in consideration. But what I wanted to state is that something that is very dangerous for youth involvement and like meaningful youth engagement is tokenism, because usually we confuse the two. Just by you being there does not mean that youth are actually being involved, like meaningfully included. And that's something that is very dangerous when it comes to, youth involvement. I've seen it many times, and sometimes you get invited and you're just supposed to be there so that when the leaders are there standing up, speaking, giving their speech, they can say that young people were involved. And if you speak up about it, you will never be invited again. So this is something that has been going on for a very long time, and I do not know when it's going to be solved, but I just wanted to state that tokenism, do not confuse the two.
Thank you so much for that wonderful reminder. I think even though unfortunately we have been reminding this to everyone, always like most of the time we end up being in such situations. I think that's where I personally think there should be a like dedicated conversation around this on strategies and how young people can sort of mitigate in their region. So thank you so much for that wonderful reminder. Caitlin, what do you think about it? And based on your understanding and things that you have seen, what does meaningful youth involvement would look like for you?
Not to like rehash what Drusilla was saying, but I think it is like really important to like make sure that like what's going on in the lives of youth is actually being like broadcasted like where it needs to be, and then building off of those, like what's being talked about and creating actual solutions to the problems that they're facing, like not just leaving it as like a very broad like just say no, because we all know that that just doesn't work, and like addressing more of like the root causes, like how to make safer decisions in real life scenarios, because obviously at one point or another like there's a possibility they may come across something even though they weren't planning on it, like having the skill set to actually address that like scenario versus like having them kind of winging it is like very important. And like the only way to do that is making sure that like people are talking about like what is actually going on in the lives of youth to the people who can make decisions to support all these programs.
Great, thank you so much for that. I would love to, this is one of my personal favorite topics about what does meaningful youth engagement meaning. But again, I think we also have to like keep it in line with the timing, so that, I will have to like move into the Q&A as well as to sort of, hear from each one of you before we wind up the session. But I think I'll save time as much as possible to take Q&A, so that, I would like to first finish the final question to each one of you. So it's also an opportunity for you to share anything that has missed out in a very short and brief way. So the common question for all of you before we move to Q&A is, what's that one message you want everyone here to leave with? My personal tip, being as an audience, share just one thing, then only they will remember. If you share a few things, they will prioritize in their own way, and then you will miss the point. So if you can just think of one point or one message you want everyone here to leave with, that will be really great. I'm sure our audience is also making note. That will be something they will reflect over the weekend as well. So who would like to go first? Maybe Asu? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Yusni. If there's one message I want everyone to leave with, is that what we have seen through this work is simple but powerful. When youth engage not as outsiders but as equals, speaking the same language, understanding the same struggles, and showing up consistently, walls begin to come down. Trust is built, conversations become honest, and that's where change truly starts. When a young person walks into a classroom, a playground, or a school and engages with children, it feels like someone who understands that reliability has the power to influence choices, shift mindsets, and inspire healthier paths. But it doesn't stop there. When these same young people take those voices into spaces of leadership, engaging with teachers, parents, and local decision makers, we become bridges. We connect the realities on the ground with the systems that can support change. And in doing so, we ensure that communities are not just heard, but actively supported and empowered and sustain the initiatives. So what makes this approach truly meaningful is that it's collective. It's not about one group solving problem. It's about communities owning their futures together. Schools became safe spaces, families become more supportive, leaders and decision makers became more responsive, and young people like us became catalysts for something much bigger than themselves. So the one thing I hope you carry with you is this: when youth are trusted, equipped, and included, not just as participants, but as leaders and change makers in their communities. Communities are empowered to build a substance abuse free future. One
So
school,
much.
one household, one community at a time. We are indeed safeguarding our next generation. That's what I have to say.
That's great. Thank you so much, Asul, for reminding that to all of us. With that, maybe Ali and others, maybe, but again, I'm also looking at the watch right now. So to make space for Q&As, let's make it a very quick 30-second, your one quick message to everyone. Just think of one thing that they should remember out of this conversation from you, or just it could be a piece of advice, it could be something very simple, like, go and relax and talk to young people more and more, simple like that, so that, we can save space for Q&As. Can we have Mukhtar? Would you like to share your last one message with the audience? Yeah.
All right. One message. I would like us all to take home the idea that our single effort actually counts in changing the world. So no matter what we do, let's just do something, as little as it is, in building healthier communities. So it doesn't have to be some big interventions. As little as what we can do, let's do it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Yodi?
So the message I want to leave with is that prevention will never be effective if it's not designed by the people who it's for. So if you want real impact, we need to move on to talk about youth, and we need to talk with the youth and make decisions with the youth, so that they're co-founders of the problems we want to solve.
Amazing. Thank you so much. How about Ketley?
Mine was just that smaller actions can have a bigger impact than we think that they will.
Great. Thank you. Drusilla, it's yours.
Yes, I just quickly wanted to share that youth leadership is not only leading, but it comes from knowing how to serve. So you need to be willing to listen. You need to be willing to give more than you receive. So that's it. Youth leadership is more than just leading.
Thank you so much, Drusilla. It's not the end. It's just, we have 10 more minutes, but again, we'll come back on the Q&A quickly. I'll first go with the first question that was given to Shalini in the beginning, soon after her speech. It's from Idrissa Koloko. Forgive me if I have mispronounced your name. How do sustain the continuous interest and participation of youth in preventive activities, mostly as volunteers? For this question and the following couple of questions, I would kindly ask all the speakers to limit their responses for a minute or less. We will share, with your permission, we can share your details with the audience so that they can get in touch with you to tap into your wisdom after this session, right? With that, maybe Shalini, can I please invite you to share your thoughts on this here? You're on mute. Yes, correct.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Am I audible? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I feel youth stay when they feel something they own it. This is ours. Like we need to move beyond assigning tasks, but let them design the initiatives, lead the initiatives, and also, like Drusilla pointed out, feel, you know, have a space to serve as well, and basically, if they feel some kind of an ownership, uh, a stewardship over a community or over a project or a campaign, I think they mostly stay and this interest is sustained. But there is also another way of sustaining interest is by finding relevant and trending engagements that interest them. That is what we do in Forthright Foundation. Like all these trending engagements we use at touch points for prevention. Like it could be creating content, filmmaking, photography, sports, theater, anything. So we use all these various engagements that they're all engaged in regular day-to-day life as a point to tell the larger story of prevention. Maybe we involve them in these things, and they it will not start off. Maybe it's just an opportunity for them to explore their own talent, and there is a touch point to tell the larger story of prevention. I hope I've
Amazing.
answered.
Thanks. Yes, thank you so much for that. And we have also received a few more questions. If we have not taken your question, please forgive us for that. But we will definitely see how we can get back on that, because I also see some of the comments from Catherine and a few others. Thank you, well acknowledged, but we will take up only one or two more questions. There's from Lovett. He has said, in my experience, some parents try to stop young people from using substances by using too much fear, and I have seen it backfire and actually made young people more curious to try using substances. So the question is, so how can parents talk about the risks of substance use in a simple and honest way that helps young people understand without making them more curious to experience? Very, very important question. I know like we have little time, but is there anyone who can take up that challenge to give some of the hints what can be done? So it will be great to give a very short answer for this as well. Is there anyone who would like to pitch in? Shalini, I see you on. Oh, Drusilla is there. Okay, practice. Okay, Drusilla, go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So basically, one of the things that we take a look at is, the way that you explain it. We don't try to talk about the way that it makes you feel and all of the things that are happening inside, but we focus on, the consequences, the risks. What are the risks that are, how do you say it, that are connected to using certain substances, and just give them the opportunity to express what their thought process is, because sometimes it's not that they don't know anything about it. They just need to be able to, get these questions out to know what side, like what choices they make. So give them the opportunity to express their thought process and build on that. Don't just randomly give out information for the sake of speaking about it, but make sure that you go on what your child already knows and, build on that. Have open conversations, not, glorifying and glamorizing like the feeling and all of that, but just focus on the risk and, continue working on, different life skills that actually are needed for these young people to how do you say this? I don't know. It feels like my English is it's not going great today. But give them the opportunity to fight off peer pressure, to say it like that, because sometimes they know what the risks are, they know this information, but they just need you to be able to be there to hand them the tools to be able to say no in this environment of peer pressure. So I hope I answered the question a little bit.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. And also we have got a couple of very interesting comments. So I would really acknowledge all of the audience to go through the chat, make a copy of it, make a note of the person who have asked that if you want to connect after the call. Unfortunately, we have little time left. I'm also acknowledging the question from Shak and Anaka, a very interesting question that we should explore and also discuss. Very, very interesting question that requires time for us to sort of, collectively reflect and come up with strategies. So I would like to thank each one of you who have actually put time to put the questions on the chat. As well as some of you shared your thoughts. Those all are like really insightful, wonderful. Unfortunately, I'm unable to take up any more questions given the time constraints, but I would like to honestly, sincerely thank each one of you for putting that effort to type something in the chat and engaging with the audience. And some of the questions that we were not able to answer, I hope like we'll be able to create more forums to discuss that in detail. With that, I would also like to once again thank all of you for being part of such a wonderful session. It was so fun, so interesting. I really wish we had like 2 more hours to spend time together, have some sort of more extended versions of these conversations. But before I wind up, I would also like to highlight some of the points for all of you, because it's not just about me coming into a session, like appreciate everyone who shared their thoughts and say, yes, it's true and we should work together. Something that I would do, I'm not saying that everyone has to do it, but I would do is like I would actually write for myself one thing that I would take out of this conversation, because how I would see is like I have invested 2 hours, so what I'm going to get out of this, So I would also suggest, like, it's a best practice that I do. Maybe some of you, if you have time, can take that 2 minutes after this call to think, digest and say like, okay, this is one thing that I learned and would like to take it up after this conversation. That will be great. In addition to all the wonderful, great insights and the inputs mentioned, something really big highlight for me is that, throughout all these interventions, what I realized was the importance of an integrated approach. Starting from Shalini's presentation to end of the conversation, we have been talking about integrated approach, looking at things holistically, and also how we look at from a systems approach, because I think some of the questions from Shaki and a few others asked related to that whole systems lens and how do you look at from different entry points, as well as something very important is that intergenerational collaboration, solidarity, and understanding, and how much of a time that we invest for that. And on top of everything, I think for me, what I learned out of this conversation is that we should never take youth engagement for granted. We should invest our time to learn and hear from young people. If we think we know everything because we have done 10 years of work, 15 years of work, that's the end of the progression. So how can we really make more time to sit with young people, hear from them, as well as intentionally learn from them, so that we can really create that enabling environment for everyone. So that's it from my end. I would also like to once again thank each and every panelist as well as the speaker today. And not forgetting our lovely Olivia, as well as Cressida from World Federation Against Drugs. You saw me throughout the session, but again, there's so much of work and effort put together behind this series, from a lot of coordination, communication with the speakers, to so many technicalities. So I would like to thank each one of you behind this success for putting this wonderful session together. So thank you very much, and you will receive more follow-up emails from WFAD team with links and more engagement opportunities. So make sure it's not on your spam. So and check your junk email and make sure you receive that follow-up email. That will have a lot of interesting information for you to learn and take it forward. Thank you very much. I'm signing off from Sri Lanka. This is Husni. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a wonderful evening.
Likewise.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.